Okay, we're gonna do ladies first. Wait a minute, just a second. I'm gonna talk about you a minute. Victoria is one of the 16 luckiest prisoners or inmates in the TDCJ system. She is a member of the BAMBI program, Babies and Mothers Bonding Initiative, and they are hand-selected, and they're allowed to keep their babies and raise their babies. They have these little apartments, and there are 4 of them in there, and the baby sleeps right at the foot. It's a beautiful thing. First time I went out there and looked at it, I said, this is just really the way most prisons ought to be. I mean, if you want somebody to act like a respectable human being, you treat them with respect. I'll say one more thing. We work at a prison called Carroll Young in Texas City, where the women are pregnant and they go have their babies at John Seeley and come back. We did groups down there, and often we'd have a girl come to group on a Tuesday night, come back the next Tuesday, and she didn't have her baby was born, and she had to give it to her family and sometimes give it to Child Protective Service, and we had to spend most of the next meeting just working with that person on the trauma of that. So this is an effort, a new program started 4 or 5 years ago, and I'll introduce Victoria to speak about her story and BAMBI.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is Victoria O'Neill. I would like to share with you all not only how prison has changed my life, but bridges to life as well. I'm so grateful to stand before you here today. I thank God for saving my life for such a time as this. I give Him all the glory and the praise. Coming to prison has been the biggest impact on my life, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, and morally. I'm currently incarcerated serving a 2-year state jail sentence for theft. I'm very fortunate to be in the BAMBI program, which is a baby and mother bonding initiative that's implemented by the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, where I have been for the past 15 months with my son Malachi. Just a little bit about myself. My parents were divorced at the age of 10. That's where my stability and normal life ended and the chaos began. My mom became a drug addict, which led us to being homeless under a bridge. And I became a tool in her tool bag to support her habit and our basic needs. She had me stealing in and out of different stores to supply her addiction. My father eventually gained custody of my sisters and I excelled academically and in sports. Living with a disabled father on a fixed income wasn't the best, especially for the star basketball player. I couldn't uphold the image I was supposed to, so I thought. So I began stealing from my teammates. I was sent to alternative school, boot camp, and then to juvenile. I couldn't keep my hands off of their stuff to save my life. So I was kicked out of sports altogether. That's when I started smoking marijuana. By the age 14, I dropped out of school. It wasn't long before I started selling crack cocaine. I moved out of my father's home and really started selling drugs. By the age 15, my father passed away and I was left to be a mother to my 13-year-old sister that already had a 1-year-old child. I worked 2 jobs and sold drugs to provide what I thought was a life. My grandmother ended up allowing my sister and her baby to move in with her, so I moved closer to my drug dealer and clients. By the age of 17, I was using marijuana, ecstasy, pain pills, Xanax, and now cocaine. At first, the cocaine wasn't a problem. I was able to maintain and use. By the age 18, I was a full-blown addict, doing all the things I said I would never do. I was in denial because it didn't look like most addicts yet. My kids and I had all the material things you could ever imagine. We looked like the picture-perfect family. But truth be told, I couldn't stop long enough to make sure my kids were born healthy. And that's when my stealing really took a turn for the worse. For 2 straight years, I stole any and everything from cosmetics to clothes to food to any and all of my baby's items. In itself was my addiction. It was so bad that I stole from my significant other, my grandmother, and anyone else whose paths I crossed. By the time I realized it, I had 2 kids in just 2 years and a baby on the way, looking at a 15-year sentence at the age of 20. I was so lost and broken and miserable. I needed a way out. God rescued me. I didn't know Him, but He knew me, and He had a purpose for my life, and that wasn't it. He also knew I couldn't do it alone, so He set me down and stripped away from me everything I had, so He could fill me up with Him. I left behind my 20-month-old son and my 8-month-old daughter. Since my incarceration, I've established a foundation built with God in the center. I've gotten baptized, and I'm in active recovery. It's an everyday process. Some days it's harder than others. I have to literally fight for my sanity and my life every day, especially when it gets hard because it's so easy to revert back to what's comfortable and what's easy. Bridges to Life is one of the classes that I've taken since my incarceration that has worked wonders in my life. I have to give a big thanks to you, John Sage, and your organization. When I first heard about it, I thought, oh Lord, another class. Okay, well, let's get this over with. I even cracked the joke one day and said, well, I got to go to Bridges to Life so I can build a new bridge to my life. And at the end of our 14-week journey, that's exactly what happened. I had not only built one bridge, but many, and in all aspects of my life. I no longer had shame, guilt, or anger built up. I was released of all my past transgressions. The Restoring Peace book was very inspirational. Every day I still tell myself, my road to peace is a journey and not an event. The program's spiritual mission is to minister to prisoners and victims in its effort to show us the transforming power of God's love and forgiveness. I'm a living testimony to that. I not only graduated once, but twice. Each time I mended and restored different bridges in my life. I believe with the help of Bridges to Life, I am a changed woman of God. I have completed 19 months of my sentence. One thing I could bet my life is that I'm not walking out of here the same way I crawled in. I have a transitional plan A, B, C, and D. I'm also about 4 weeks from obtaining my paralegal certificate. I have an awesome support system and a relationship with the most highest power, Jesus Christ. Bridges to Life's curriculum has become my way of life in a never-ending cycle. Thank you for having me, and it's been my pleasure.
On the heels of her story, I want to tell you one quick comment. I called another young lady that had been through BAMBI and graduated and been out for a year. And she happened to be in my wife's small group, and her name is Kim. And this is real powerful to me. You know, we've graduated 23,000, which is huge, but this shows you there's a whole lot more there. She said, John, I live by the book and the workbook. She said, before I got out of prison, my mother and father and I weren't speaking, and my sister wasn't speaking with me because of all of my drug problems. I'd stolen from them, blah, blah, blah. She said, when I got out, I took a workbook. I don't know if you'll see our workbook. It's like a blanket. It has questions, and she wrote answers. She said, I took white out and whited all my answers out, copied the workbook, and sent it to all three of them. My reaction was, well, can't we just sent you some of those books? then I wouldn't have the story. But anyway, so she painted all that out, and she said, John, we've gone through it together. We've totally reconciled. This is week before Thanksgiving. I'm going to Arkansas with my mother's for Thanksgiving next week. And she said, I just can't thank you enough. And, so that's real redemption. I mean, that's, so, I don't know. I mean, we have 23,000 graduates, but we might, fill up a couple of football stadiums of people that have been impacted by this, and that's really inspiring to me.